The official explanation proposed that Tetford had exited in Rutland, and that the witnesses had mistakenly identified another passenger as him. This was contradicted by the conductor's passenger count, which still included Tetford. Another explanation suggested a psychiatric episode, claiming Tetford hid somewhere in the bus and left later. This was ruled out because the detailed inspection revealed no place where an adult man could have concealed himself. A third theory alleged a conspiracy among the passengers, but investigators found no evidence of collusion, and none of the passengers knew each other. The date of disappearance, December 1st, matched the date of Paula Weldon's disappearance 3 years earlier. A note in the Soldiers' Home internal records stated that Tetford had known Weldon's story. A week before his trip, he told fellow residents that the girl found a way out, and soon everyone will know the truth. Possibly the words of a troubled mind, but in light of what happened, they raised further questions. 1 month after Tetford vanished, police in Brandon, a town 70 miles north of Bennington, received a strange report. A night watchman at a factory claimed he saw a man resembling Tetford behaving oddly near the gates, but the man disappeared before officers arrived. A private investigator hired by Tetford's niece interviewed staff members at all stations between Rutland and Bennington. A mechanic in Arlington swore he saw an elderly man in a military coat appear out of thin air near the shoulder of Route 7 on December 1st, around 10 p.m., but refused to testify officially, fearing ridicule. The official investigation was closed on February 15, 1950. The conclusion stated that James Edward Tetford was missing under unknown circumstances and had most likely exited the bus in Rutland, despite contradictory witness accounts. This conclusion ignored one central fact. Tetford's belongings remained on the bus. Why would a man voluntarily leaving the bus abandon his luggage? The disappearance of James Tetford remains the most puzzling case in the Bennington Triangle. Vanishing from a moving bus in full view of passengers is physically impossible, yet the impossible occurred on December 1st, 1949, on the highway between Rutland and Bennington. Local residents later noted another tragic event. On October 12, 1950, 8-year-old Paul Jepson became the youngest victim associated with the Bennington Triangle. The circumstances of his disappearance added new troubling elements to the growing list of unexplained cases. According to the police file, his full name was Paul Baxter Jepson. He was born on April 3, 1942. His physical description listed a height of 3 feet 8 inches and a weight of 52 pounds. He had light hair, blue eyes, and a scar on his left knee from falling off a bicycle. His health record mentioned mild intellectual disability, but good physical condition. The Jepson family lived on the Bliss farm outside Bennington. His father, Carl Jepson, age 34, was a labourer. His mother, Lorraine Jepson, age 29, was a homemaker. His siblings were Thomas, age 10, Richard, age 6, and David, age 3. A social worker's report noted that the family faced financial difficulties and made a modest living by raising pigs and selling milk. Paul attended a special school 3 days a week. He was described as gentle, but required constant supervision due to a tendency to wander. On October 12, 1950, Lorraine Jepson drove to the town dump where the family kept their pigs. She later stated that she took Paul with her because the older boys were at school, and the youngest child was with a neighbour. Paul enjoyed going with her. She dressed him in a red jacket. The day was chilly, and the bright colour made him easy to see from a distance. They arrived at the dump around 2 in the afternoon. Paul stayed in the cab of the pickup truck while she fed the pigs. This usually took 30 to 40 minutes. He knew he was not allowed to get out of the vehicle. According to Lorraine Jepson's statement, she returned to the truck at 2:45 p.m. Paul was gone, and the door was open. At first, she assumed he had stepped into the bushes to relieve himself. She called out to him, but heard only silence. She walked around the area, The dump was fenced. There was nowhere the child could have gone far. She panicked. The dump's caretaker, Frank Walsh, confirmed her account. Mrs. Jepson ran to me around 3 p.m., hysterical, shouting that her son was missing. I immediately checked the perimeter. The fence was intact. The gate was closed. The boy could not have left without being noticed. By 3:30 p.m., 4 dump employees joined the search, along with Carl Jepson and several neighbours. A police patrol arrived shortly after, from the report of Officer George Smith. I arrived at 3:45 p.m. and organised a systematic search of the dump. The area covered roughly 4 acres. By 5 p.m., every square foot had been examined. The boy was not found. At 5:30 p.m., canine handler Robert Clark arrived with a tracking dog. His report stated that the dog picked up the scent from the pickup truck. The trail led to the eastern edge of the dump, then followed the fence line north for about 200 yards. At the northeast corner, the trail turned sharply west and ended 50 feet later. The location was a flat patch of ground with no distinctive features. Notably, the dog refused to move beyond the point where the scent stopped, showing signs of intense distress, tail lowered, whining. In 15 years of service, I have seen such a reaction only once before. By the morning of October 13th, the search involved 300 volunteers from Bennington and nearby towns, 50 members of the National Guard, 75 Boy Scouts, and 5 search dogs. The search radius extended 10 miles around the dump. Special attention was given to abandoned wells and mine shafts, ravines and streams, thick underbrush, and old structures. According to the testimony of schoolteacher Henry Barnes, a search participant, Carl Jepson behaved strangely. When we were searching north of the dump, he said, "No, the mountain took him. It always wanted to." When asked what he meant, he replied, "The boy kept trying to go there. He said someone was calling him." Jepson later denied the statement, claiming he had been overwhelmed by grief. Local historian Elizabeth Turner noted in a letter to the newspaper that Paul Jepson was wearing a red jacket. Paula Weldon had also been wearing red. Elders remembered an old indigenous legend that the spirit of the mountain takes those who wear the colour of blood. Perhaps a coincidence, she wrote, but a striking one. Police dismissed such explanations as superstition, but the fact remained. 2 of the 4 missing persons had been dressed in red. On October 15th, a tourist from Massachusetts reported seeing a boy resembling Paul walking with an adult man on Route 9, 8 miles from the dump. In his statement, he said he saw them around 3 p.m. on October 12th. The boy in the red jacket walked behind a tall man in dark clothing. The strange thing was the boy's behaviour. He walked like a sleepwalker, staring straight ahead. The man never looked back, but the boy followed as if drawn along. A large-scale check produced no suspects. No one matched the description of the man. The kidnapping theory suggested someone might have taken the boy. Arguments against this included the enclosed area, the absence of strangers, and the lack of foreign scent detected by the dog. The accident theory proposed that the child could have fallen into a pit or well. Against it stood the thoroughness of the search. All dangerous areas had been checked. The voluntary wandering theory considered Paul's tendency to run off, but his limited intellectual capacity made it unlikely that he could plan an escape or travel far alone. From the report of child psychologist Dr. Martin Green. Paul Jepson had an IQ of approximately 70, but demonstrated an unusual sense of spatial orientation. His mother reported that he always knew where north was, even in unfamiliar places. There were also documented episodes in which he spoke of a friend in the forest whom no one else had seen. Detective Charles Morgan wrote in a memorandum, "The fourth unexplained disappearance in 5 years within a 10-mile radius. The pattern is clear. All vanished in daylight. Trails end abruptly with no apparent cause. Dogs show abnormal behaviour. No remains, no evidence. I recommend forming a special unit to study the phenomenon." His recommendation was rejected by superiors, who considered it an encouragement of superstition. On October 27th, logger John Dawson reported a discovery 3 miles from the dump. A single children's shoe was found, later identified as Paul's. A scrap of red fabric was caught on a branch 7 feet above the ground. The find raised questions. The area had been thoroughly searched on October 15th. How the items appeared there afterward remained unexplained. The disappearance of the child caused panic among residents. From the Bennington Banner editorial of October 20th. 4 people have vanished without a trace, from an experienced hunter to a child. Authorities talk of coincidences, but people are afraid. Parents no longer let their children out alone. Tourists avoid our region. How many more must disappear before someone admits something is wrong with our forests? A month after the disappearance, Lorraine Jepson told a neighbour, as recorded in a police report, "Sometimes I think I hear his voice in the wind. He says he is fine, that he is with other children. I suppose I am losing my mind with grief. But why do I dream of him in a place where it is always foggy and the trees are grey?" The neighbour noted that Mrs. Jepson had never heard the local stories about a grey mist, mentioned in several regional legends. On December 15, 1950, active searches were discontinued. The conclusion stated that Paul Jepson was missing and presumed dead. The likely cause was listed as abduction by an unknown person, with subsequent concealment of the body. The case remains open. The Jepson family left Bennington in the spring of 1951. Rumours suggested they moved after the youngest child, David, began saying he could see Paul in the mist, and that Paul was calling him to follow. The disappearance of Paul Jepson became the final case in the primary series of vanishings associated with the Bennington Triangle in the 1940s and 1950s. An 8-year-old boy in a red jacket seemed to place a period at the end of that ominous chapter. But was it truly a period, or only an ellipsis? The decades that followed suggested that the triangle had not been satisfied and continued to claim its toll. In April 2019, journalist Emma Harris began an independent investigation into the disappearances linked to the Bennington Triangle. The reason was personal. Her younger sister Sarah had gone missing on Trail 3 on October 3, 2018. According to her biographical profile, Emma Harris, age 34, held a degree in journalism from Columbia University and had professional experience as. She had 15 years of experience in investigative journalism. Her specialization included unsolved cases and historical mysteries. Her work had appeared in the New York Times, The Atlantic, and Harper's Magazine. From the police report dated October 4, 2018, Sarah Jane Harris, age 28, went missing during a solo hike on the Long Trail. Her last contact was a text message sent to her sister at 1:22 p.m. "Incredible views. Another hour and I'll be at the summit." Her phone was found on the trail, half a mile from the spot where the message had likely been sent. Her personal belongings, including her backpack, were missing. Search operations involving 80 people and drones produced no results. From Emma Harris's journal entry dated April 15, 2019. "The police closed Sarah's case as an accident, but I know these places. We hiked here since childhood. Sarah was an experienced hiker. Beginning my own investigation. Step 1. Create a complete map of all disappearances in the region." Harris used the following sources: State Police Archives of Vermont, official case files, newspaper archives dating back to 1845, church records of missing parishioners, diaries and letters of local residents, military archives, partially declassified missing person databases, and interviews with long-time residents. By August 2019, Harris had compiled data on 237 disappearances in the region over 174 years. From her report, only 23 cases are officially recognised, but the archives reveal the true scale of the phenomenon. Between 1845 and 1900, 68 disappearances. Between 1901 and 1950, 74 disappearances. Between 1951 and 2000, 59 disappearances. Between 2001 and 2019, 36 disappearances. The decline after the 1950s did not reflect an end to the phenomenon, but rather changes in classification. Many cases were relabeled as suicides or voluntary departures. Harris created a detailed map using GIS technology. Her key findings included the following. 92% of disappearances occurred within a 10-mile radius of Glastonbury Mountain. The epicentre was not the summit itself, but a zone between 2,000 and 2,500 feet on the northeastern slope. 7 hotspots with the highest concentration of disappearances were identified. Point A. Bend on the Long Trail, 18 cases. Point B. Bickford Hollow area, 15 cases. Point C. Kelly Pass, 12 cases. Point D. Boulder Mountain Creek, 11 cases. Point E. Old Logging Road, 10 cases. Point F. Glastonbury Lookout, 9 cases. Point G. Abandoned Quarry, 8 cases. The 7 points formed an almost perfect heptagon around a specific sector of the mountainside. From Harris's analytical report, the timeline revealed a cycle. Peaks of activity occurred every 74 years, plus or minus 3 years. Major surges, 1872 to 1876, 1945 to 1950, and 2018 to the present. 80% of cases occurred between May and October. 30% occurred in the first days of the month. Correlation with lunar phases showed 60% occurring near full moon or new moon, though this was not considered remarkable. December 1st appeared in 4 cases: Weldon, Tetford, and 2 unconfirmed 19th century disappearances. Victim profile according to Harris's analysis. Age range from 8 to 74. Average age 32. Gender distribution: 58% male, 42% female. Physical condition: 70% were in good shape. Education: disproportionately high percentage of educated individuals. Notable detail: 30% wore red clothing or had red items. Harris interviewed 43 people whose relatives or acquaintances had disappeared. Typical testimonies included the following. Margaret Stone, age 87. My uncle vanished in 1938. The family never reported it. They were afraid it would be blamed on drinking, but he didn't drink. He simply went to gather firewood and never returned. Robert Kelly, age 91. I remember as a child we were forbidden to go to certain places. The elders said, "The boundary is thin there." They never explained what boundary, but we understood we shouldn't go near it. In July 2019, Harris discovered a 1952 document in a private archive. It was a report from a committee on anomalous events, formed by Vermont authorities after the disappearance wave. The committee, which included representatives from law enforcement, the university, and the military, concluded that an unexplained geographically localized phenomenon existed in the region. They recommended restricting access to the identified danger zones, avoiding public attention, and continuing discreet monitoring. A dissenting opinion was filed by physics professor J. Lawrence. The data indicate the possible existence of a spatial anomaly. Further research using advanced equipment is required. The committee was dissolved in 1953 without explanation. Harris compared disappearance dates with meteorological and geophysical data. She identified statistically significant correlations with geomagnetic storms, coefficient 0.72, anomalous atmospheric pressure readings, coefficient 0.64, increased solar activity, coefficient 0.58, and seismic activity in the region, coefficient 0.41. On the days when disappearances occurred, unusual natural phenomena were often reported. Strange mists, unexplained sounds, and abnormal animal behavior. In addition to her sister's case, Harris documented 8 disappearances since 2010 that had never entered the official statistics. 2011, a tourist from Boston. 2013, a local game warden. 2014, a couple from New York. 2016, a nature photographer. 2017, a University of Vermont student. 2018, Sarah Harris and another hiker. 2019, up to August, already 2 cases. Harris's attempts to draw attention to the problem faced resistance. From her correspondence with the Vermont Department of Public Safety, "Your claims regarding systematic disappearances are not supported by official statistics. Dissemination of unverified information may damage the state's tourism industry. We recommend ceasing publication of materials that cause unwarranted public concern." From Harris's diary, entry dated August 15th, 2019. Spent the night in a tent at Point A. Around 3 in the morning, I woke to a strange silence. Complete absence of forest sounds. Went outside. The compass spun uncontrollably. The GPS showed that I was in 3 different locations at once. It lasted for about an hour, then everything returned to normal. In the morning, I noticed that my watch was 47 minutes behind. Checked the camera footage. There is a 47-minute gap, even though I was awake. What happened during those 47 minutes? In September 2019, Harris published her preliminary findings. The Bennington Triangle is neither myth nor coincidence. It is a real phenomenon with clear geographic and temporal parameters. Over 174 years, at least 237 people have disappeared here. The pattern indicates the existence of 7 anomalous zones with activity governed by still unknown laws. We are at the beginning of a new activity cycle. If the trend continues, the next 3 years will bring a sharp increase in disappearances. Immediate action is needed. Closing dangerous zones, scientific investigation of the phenomenon, honest public communication. Ignoring the problem will lead to new victims. Within a week after publication, Emma Harris received numerous letters from people who had lost relatives in the Bennington Triangle. She continued her investigation, unaware that she herself would soon become part of the grim statistics. Of the 237 documented disappearances in the Bennington Triangle, only 11 people ever returned. 9 of them came back within hours or days. 2 returned after much longer periods. Their testimony is of particular importance for understanding the phenomenon. From the interview protocol dated June 18, 1973, Carol Hertz, age 19, a University of Vermont student, disappeared on June 15th during a group hike. She was found on June 17th, 3 miles from the point where she had been last seen. Physical condition: mild dehydration, 2 kilograms of weight loss, multiple scratches. Mental condition: disorientation, partial amnesia. Hertz's testimony: I remember falling behind the group to photograph some flowers. When I looked up, there was a strange fog around me, grey and dense. I walked forward thinking I would catch up with the others. Time felt strange, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. I saw other people in the fog, but they did not respond when I called to them. Then I suddenly found myself in a clearing. The fog lifted. I thought only a few hours had passed. It turned out to be 2 days. Medical examination revealed anomalies. Melatonin levels were 3 times above normal. Changes in the hippocampus indicated prolonged sensory deprivation. Unexplained traces of radiation were found on her clothing, 20% above background levels. From the report of the Search and Rescue Service, James Thompson, age 34, an experienced hiker, disappeared on August 2nd on a trail near Glastonbury Mountain, found on August 3rd in a state of extreme agitation. Circumstances of discovery. A group of hikers saw Thompson appear out of nowhere on the trail. In their words, he seemed to step out of an invisible doorway. Thompson's recorded statement in the hospital. I was walking along the trail when I suddenly felt dizzy. The air became thick like jelly. The next thing I remember, I was in a place that should not exist. Grey trees, grey sky, grey ground, but not dark, just quiet. I saw other people there. Some wore old-fashioned clothing from another century. They walked in circles like sleepwalkers. I tried speaking, but they looked right through me. Time there moved differently. There was no day or night, no hunger or thirst, only a strange calm. Then I heard a sound, like a distant bell. I walked toward it and suddenly found myself back on the trail. Later observations. Thompson suffered from nightmares and panic attacks for 5 years. He died by suicide in 1992, leaving a note. It is calling me back. I can no longer resist. This note was found in the belongings of one of the returned victims. A unique case involved the simultaneous disappearance and return of a married couple. According to the police report, the Petersons, ages 32 and 35, went missing on September 23rd while celebrating their wedding anniversary at the Bliss campground near Glastonbury. They were found on September 24th, 15 miles from their campsite. Their condition was described as shocked, showing signs of hypothermia and strange burns on their hands, resembling electrical discharge marks. Their statements were identical in key details. Both described a corridor of grey mist, a sensation of weightlessness, and encounters with people wearing old-fashioned clothing. Both independently drew similar symbols, claiming to have seen them in the grey sky. Analysis of the drawings revealed no correlation with known alphabets or symbolic systems. The youngest of the returned individuals was a child. From the interview protocol of a child psychologist, Sarah went missing for 3 hours during a family picnic. Her parents insisted they had not taken their eyes off her, yet she vanished between blinks. She was later found asleep 200 meters from the picnic site. The child's account. I followed a pretty butterfly. The butterfly led me to the grey place. There were other children there. We played, but they did not talk. Then a tall man came and told me it was time to go home. I woke up under a tree. A notable detail emerged. Sarah described 3 children she had seen. One of them, based on her description, resembled Paul Jepson, who disappeared in 1950. Sarah could not have known about him. Her family was from California and unfamiliar with local legends. Another case involved a man who disappeared in 1994 and reappeared in 2004. From the medical report, the patient claimed he had been gone for only a few days, although 10 years had passed. His physical aging corresponded to 10 years. His psychological condition showed persistent dissociation and depersonalization. He described being in a space with altered physical laws. He stated that all the missing were there, but they existed in different layers of time and rarely interacted. According to him, he found an exit by accident, following a crack in the grey. DNA analysis confirmed his identity, but revealed unexplained mutations in several regions of his genome. A comparative analysis of the testimonies from all 11 returned individuals revealed repeating elements. Description of the place. Grey mist or grey haze appeared in 100% of cases. Absence of the sun but presence of diffuse light appeared in 91%. Leafless grey trees in 82%. Silence except for a distant humming sound in 73%. Physical sensations. Altered perception of time in 100%. Absence of hunger and thirst in 82%. A feeling of lightness or near weightlessness in 64%. Emotional state. Apathy or emotional flattening in 73%. Presence of other people. 91% saw other individuals. In 100% of those reports, the people did not respond to attempts at contact. 73% noted that some individuals wore clothing from earlier historical periods. 82% described repetitive, mechanical behavior. All returned individuals displayed measurable abnormalities. Elevated levels of specific neurotransmitters, changes in the temporal lobes of the brain, and disrupted circadian rhythms that lasted for months. There were unexplained isotopic anomalies in their tissues. Psychological consequences included PTSD, dissociation, and depersonalization. 73% attempted suicide within 5 years. Their final notes often mentioned the call of the grey place and the impossibility of living in two worlds. A researcher who studied 3 of the returned victims proposed a hypothesis. The consistency of the descriptions rules out mass hallucination. The neurological changes are real and measurable. It is possible that these individuals experienced exposure to an unknown physical phenomenon affecting the perception of space and time. The described grey place may not be another dimension, but an altered state of consciousness triggered by a specific form of environmental influence. The hypothesis did not explain the physical transportation of people or their absence from our world for days or even years. In 2016, a group of relatives of the missing, with support from private investors, organised an expedition. Its goal was to locate the entrance to the grey place and bring back those who had disappeared. The team included 3 individuals who had previously returned and served as guides, 5 scientists from various disciplines, and 10 volunteers who were family members of the missing. The expedition ended in tragedy. From the Diary of the Sole Survivor. 3rd day at Point A. Thomas, one of the returned, said he felt the thinning. Around noon, the grey mist began. Thomas walked in first, followed by the others. I stayed behind for a moment with the equipment. When I looked up, I saw the last person seemingly dissolve into the air. The mist cleared a minute later. All 15 people were gone. I have been waiting for 3 days. They have not returned. The 11th and final known case of return occurred in April 2019. A tourist from Boston, missing for 6 hours, was found in a state of catatonia. After emerging from it, he refused to speak about what he experienced, repeating only one sentence. "It is waking up. The cycle is closing. No one will return anymore." A week after this incident, journalist Emma Harris published her full investigative report, warning of a new cycle of activity. Her prediction began to unfold far sooner than anyone expected. That is the story. Share in the comments if you know of places where people mysteriously go missing. See you next time.